When an entity enters the room, I can tell you exactly what kind of entity it is. I can tell you its weak spot, what makes that entity stronger, what that entity is going to do in your space.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Do you feel anything here?
Oh, yes, of course.
The media headlines grabbed everyone's attention. The princess and the shaman.
The couple is referred to as the princess and the shaman and has created waves in Norway with their belief.
Because I'm a princess, I had to wear nice clothes all the time, and it was like suffocating to me.
And here I come wearing Gucci and rocking Versace pants that have like art paint on them. And at the end of the day, I'm just all leather. I don't sugarcoat. I'm not here to play to people's emotions and dance around their emotions and hide myself from what they might think or say.
In Norway, there is still resistance to their open expression of spirituality and opposition for not conforming.
I had everybody against me. I had the bishops against me, politicians were against it because that's not what I'm supposed to do. The historians were against it because they said I would be, previous times would be burnt at the stakes, which I'm sure I would have been, and I feel I have 5 times this lifetime already.
And even moments of racism.
And then the press does it, making comments like the king is gonna whip Durek, and then you see him
in the
marketplace getting whipped.
That was one. Yeah, they wrote it in the paper. Yeah.
And every time my headline was the black bisexual shaman.
And one revelation you won't hear anywhere else.
Have you spoken about that before?
No.
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end.
Like I remember like 3 months ago, I was like, I want to do this interview. And then today I get a call and they're like, can you do it in an hour? I was like, what? I had like a face mask on, I'm like totally lounging.
Yeah, you sent the picture.
I sent the photo, yeah.
Yeah, well, because I said to her that you wanted to do an interview with us, and then she's like, well, let's do it. And then I was like, okay, so when are we thinking of doing it?
I'm leaving Monday, 2 days.
So I'll call right now and see what he says. You know?
I love that though, and I think it's a cool reminder for people. You know what I noticed from people who are like doing things in the world on any level, any scale, any industry, they're the ones who are like, yeah, let's do it, let's go out. They say yes, you know, and I learned that because I'm such a creature of comfort that for me, I'm like, oh, well, let's do it tomorrow, you know? I'll take my time, set up, but sometimes it's like a good lesson that you guys helped me with today of just do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we do things a lot.
Yeah.
You know, Märtha will say, oh, we just get back from a ski trip. And I said, well, what are you doing tomorrow, honey? And she's like, oh, I'm going to go win the Guinness World Records for cross-country skiing. I'm like, I haven't even seen you train or do anything. She's like, I know, I'm just going to go and do it. And I'm the same way too.
Yeah.
Did that already happen?
Yeah.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was the first time anybody has done it, so I would get it in whatever form or.
What is it exactly?
It was the Guinness World Record for indoor cross-country skiing.
Whoa.
So in Norway we have, because the summers you don't have so much snow, they've built like a center where they have snow and it's cold all year round for alpine skiing, so downhill skiing and stuff. But they also created this round under the ceiling for cross-country skiing, you know, like long run. And so I went round and round for 12 hours.
12 hours?
12 hours.
Whoa.
I made a video for her to encourage her to keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, like to watch or listen?
To watch on the screen.
Yeah, no,
Whoa.
so it was for a TV program. It was my friend called Harold, and it was things so the whole concept was that I got him to do things that he's not very comfortable doing, and then he gets me to do something that I'm not very comfortable doing. To be honest, I'm not like Norway. For Norwegians, we're born with skis on our feet, and we're supposed to love cross-country skiing, but I love downhill skiing, but not so much the cross-country skiing, so I'm not really very good. And when we were, and I got so exhausted because I'm also not that fit because I didn't exercise before the thing. So I was so exhausted, and also you have your arms up because you have sticks. So it got so painful, you know.
Yeah,
so
what a workout, right?
Yeah,
Like
oh my God,
arms,
12
legs,
hours.
core.
12 hours, yeah,
Wow.
everything. And it's also up and down. So you have to like go up the hill, you have to go down the hill. You have to like, yeah. Anyway, so then we came and I was like, I'm so in agony. And he's like, yeah, let's get the doctor, you know, and the doctor came and he's like, yeah, you know, you're very tired now. So I don't want to give you any painkillers because that will make your energy go even lower. But you know, what you could do was just go a bit slower, you know. And my friend Harold was like, slower? If we go slower, we'll be standing still. Because I was so exhausted.
We all need friends like that. I saw a post today. It was like one of your children. And what I thought was so cool, it was like an art show, right?
Yes, she had her first solo exhibition today.
She had an art show, and her hair was all different colors. And you know, I have to say, like, I commented, and I was like, that's so cool that you empower, right, your children like that. And Durek, I'm sure now you do too as well. There's so many parents out there, even my own, who like, I remember one time just being like, I'm gonna get my ear pierced, and they lost it. They were like, no, you're not. And I was younger. And older than she is now, I'm sure. And they lost it. And I just thought it was such a harmless, small thing, like an earring, really? You know? And so it's so cool to see that. Can you tell me a little bit about that relationship?
I think that my perspective of being a mom is to unravel each petal as it comes. It's not that I am forming the child. It's more experiencing who the child is and then supporting where that child is and what that child is about. And so it's like one petal at a time, like, oh, that's interesting, now that came out, now that came out, you know? And it's been so amazing to see that my three girls unravel. I have one 20-year-old, Maud, who had the exhibition today, and then Leah, who's a totally different character, and Emma again, who's a totally different character. And just to see how their three different personalities have like unraveled and showed themselves and presenting themselves as these amazing young women who stand firm, because when you are allowed to get grounded in yourself and who you are and get supported where you are, then I think that you get a different perspective of yourself as well as a start, instead of like, no, that's wrong, no, that's wrong. You know, no, you're not allowed to do what your soul tells you to do. Because normally I find kids actually come to the world with an instinct of in what direction they're going. Like my middle one, Leah, she was a beauty queen already when she was 2.
Oh, wow.
Like she knew all the outfits of all the kids in her daycare center and the parents and she would put the shoes out for the kids to put on when the parents came. Like she's always been like that. And when she was like 4 or 5, she would look at these big posters and she would say, I want to be on those. I want to be, you know, on like a model. And I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a fashionista, although Durek is very good at making me more into that. But originally I'm like very like horse girl. I love being in the stables, not caring about what to wear, because I've had to wear, because I'm a princess, I had to wear nice clothes all the time, and it was like suffocating to me. And then I was looking at this 4-year-old, and I was like, I can't meet this girl, like I don't know how to connect with this girl. I think when she's 15 that will be terrible, you know, like she wants to be a model. I don't know what the modeling world is, you know. And so I had a breakdown about that when she was 4. And then now she's a model, and she's also an influencer, and won lots of awards and everything for her openness, also about mental health. And she, and of course, it develops, and we also have a great relationship, and I really support her. And then my youngest one is into horseback riding, so she's a show jumper, and is very successful in that area.
And it works well with us as well too, because all 3 girls of my bonus daughters, I have something in common with each of them. I've been in the art world for a very long time. I had my own art gallery in New York City. I know the art world people, so that is something that I connect with Maud. I've been a fashion model, modeled for major companies, runway in Paris, Milan, New York, and having that experience with Leia, I can give her information about what to expect and like what's going to happen. and just we understand each other, so we know fashion. So we're like, oh no, that was 2 years ago, or oh, that was this, you know, and oh no, you can't mix plaid with that color, you know, so things like that. And so we have that really strong connection. And then Emma, she is more the athletic and type and into horses, and I also ride horses, and I'm also very intellectual in the field of like just, you know, being playful like she is, and she loves doing TikTok videos, and we do TikTok videos together, and you know, we have this very strong bonus father and bonus daughter relationship. So the whole home, we're all just very go-getters. You know, Leia's has had her own TV show called Power Women. Maud's been on 2 TV shows, and you know, Märtha's always doing TV shows. I'm doing TV shows. You know, Emma's winning championships, and she's now on the Norwegian team, and she's, you know, Märtha is a champion show jumper. So it's like we all have a connection to the horses, to the fashion, to the art, to everything as a whole, as a family. And I think that really makes it work out really well.
But I also think one more thing when I was just sitting listening to you, like how to be there for them is also to listen. Because children come with so much profound wisdom, and they come with their own world, so to speak. And to really not say, this is how it is, like, you are supposed to do like this, but more like, okay, so how would you think that would work? Like, what would happen if we did that? And then they talk, and also when they come with situations in their life that are difficult or whatever they come with, listen, you know, like listen to their big thoughts, their small thoughts, but sit and listen to them, and don't think that you're the master teaching them, because it goes both ways. They come with their whole world of wisdom with them, and I just think it's amazing to have that wisdom in front of you, and to be able to tap into it and listen, and it's amazing what comes out of them.
Yeah, it's really beautiful what comes out of them.
So beautiful. You know, I had an interview actually right here with Gaia. She said to me, you know, I speak to babies for expecting mothers, and they are so excited. They tell me what their name is going to be. They know what role they're gonna have. Like, they came in here knowing, and they're excited for it.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like how beautiful that you guys are nurturing that, and not like adding conditions, or you have to do this, or this is your role. You're letting them play out that thing that you came here to be.
It's always nice, because my favorite time in our family is when we sit down for dinner, and I just listen to them speak to me and just tell me everything that's going on. And we laugh, we have fun, we do art projects together. You know, we have a very loving, nurturing, playful home. And I think that really creates an energy, because we're not, there's no, I mean, of course, we're still being parents, and we're still creating, you know, structures that support them, but not structures that suppress them. And I think that's the difference, you know, is that these structures that we create are there to give them space to explore, and to know that we're gonna like hold that space for them and let them do what they need to do in that space, because we trust them. And we show them that trust. But we don't create structures to suppress them, where they feel they can't talk or share things with us. They share everything with us. And it's nice to know that they can do that.
I'll piggyback off kind of what we were going with before.
But can I just add,
yeah.
because you said about the name coming to the women, and I had that with Maud, since we're talking about Maud. Before she was born, both my husband and me at the time woke up one morning. I had dreamt that she came to me and said, I'm supposed to be called Angelica. And when I woke up in the morning, my husband at the time turned to me and said, our child is supposed to be called Angelica.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I just dreamt that last night. Like, I just...
How did he, did he have the dream, or how did...
No, I had the dream, and he woke up and he just turned to me and he said that.
But like, where did he say it came
It just
from?
came through him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, so she's going to be called Angelica. So she's called Maud Angelica.
I was in Spain a few weeks ago. I met a couple from Norway, and they were so cool, so fun. One was a yoga teacher, the other's a photographer. They're very much in this world of wellness and spirituality and mental health. And I said, oh, you know, I know Princess Märtha. And they go, do you know Shaman Durek too? And I was like, I do. And I was like, we can call him. And so we called, and you were so nice. You spoke to them in Norwegian. When I talked to this couple, they said, we really love those two and what they're doing. It's really shaking things up in the country. And they said, it's so interesting how divisive it is. They're like, some people are so for it and excited that this is happening and it's change and it's new. And others are just so like, no, it's always been this way. It's always been this way. And I said, is it like a racist thing? What is it? And they were like, it's less that and more change. Like, they're like, they just don't want, like, the monarchy's always been one way, or society's been one way, and they don't like change, and it's hard for them to embrace change in Norway.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me your perspective? That's just from what they've told me.
Yeah, I think that's very true, but I don't think that's just to Norway. That change is difficult. I think that's in the human persona. That change to us is hard. Like, everybody wants to change, but when they say this is what you have to do, everybody's like, yeah, no, I just want the outcome. I don't really want to change all the other things in between, because that's the hard part.
The discomfort.
It's the discomfort.
Which goes back to your show that you did and why that's so important.
Yeah, it is discomfort, and and I think that something as symbolic for Norwegians as the royal family. It's like the core thing, the stable thing, the thing that's supposed to be secure and safe, and they know what it is, and we're supposed to be there for them. And when, for example, I went out of the norm and started doing my spiritual center and having healings and teaching people, to get in contact with themselves and their inner path and voice and compass, then they were outraged because that's not what a royal is supposed to.
Even from that?
Even from that, I had everybody against me. I had the bishops against me. I was also communicating with angels and that kind of energy. And so they were against that because these angels were not the angels in the Bible. That was what they said. And then politicians were against it because that's not what I'm supposed to do. The historians were against it because they said I would be, previous times we would be burnt at the stakes, which I'm sure I would have been, and I feel I have 5 times this lifetime already. And then you had the older men that just said that I'm not allowed to work at all. Like, I'm supposed to be
just the
traditional Norwegian royal. And so breaking out of that was really hard because it was so many layers of society that went out against it.
How are you able to? Like, when I imagine like a monarchy or anything industry that's that deep rooted, like, I would think that there's so many things you have to go through in order to even do that.
But the thing was, to my advantage in a way, was that because it's my younger brother taking over the throne, so he's in succession. So I was doing official duties and had my own things to do, but they stopped giving me money because they said that was just the other part of the family. And so I was like, okay, so how am I going to live? If I don't get any money from anywhere, I need to be able to work and get an income and have an income. And so then the whole process started so I started off actually having a TV program with fairy tales, because the Norwegian fairy tales are very strong with the trolls and the princesses and all this, and it's very anchored in our culture. And it's kind of dying, so I felt that this was my call to refresh this whole, because it's so much of our inner world that's explained in the fairy tales, I find, and it's also something that binds the whole world, because we all have these stories that we've told each other for generations that are actually quite similar when you start looking at them and how they've traveled around the world, and you can find the different fairy tales in different areas. And so I started off having that show, and then I just found this spirituality that I've always had with me. And I've always been so curious about what that is, because nobody could really explain that to me. That I had contact with spirits, I would see them, I would know, who they are, or why do I have this? I could see into other dimensions, I could see what was wrong with people. I was very sensitive.
I didn't know all this. That's how deep it goes?
Yeah, so I grew up, for example, with a man sitting in my room, and I didn't know who this was, and I was terrified every night. And I told everybody, and they were like, you know, pulling the curtains aside, saying, "There's nobody in here in the room." And I was like, "Yeah, but there's this guy staring at me every night," and I would be like in my bed, you know, in cold sweat, like so scared. And then just a few years ago, my dad was like, "Who lived in that room again here in this quarter?" Because they remodeled the whole thing. And I was like, "That was me." And he was like, "Yeah." So because our house was taken over by the Nazis during the Second World War. And so one of the leaders committed suicide in my room. And I was like, "Now you tell me after you know about like, I've gone through all of it."
Wild.
Like,
Did you feel that energy was dark?
No, it was just like really sad, and he was staring at, and I always felt like I was being choked. So he was just staring at me, but I was just so scared from it. And so, yeah, so that kind of experiences I had with me, and also I started communicating with Angel and really found my inner core, and just like found a long lost friend filled with love, you know, and I was just, and I became much safer and much more secure in who I was by knowing my guardian angel and having that communication with them, and I think that sparked the whole thing. And just even though I didn't know it, my whole life started changing. So then I dared to take a course, you know, in healing and energy readings, and you know, and then I was like, oh my God, this is my world. I can do this. I was really good at it, you know. Like I came in there half an hour after the course had started, and they thought I had special training, and I didn't, because it was just so natural to me. Like it was my language. I was like, finally, somebody understands, you know? So that was like a revelation for me, to be able to develop these kind of techniques and what I have in me, and how I can protect myself while actually going into other people's energies, or reading other people, or you know, or downloading, you know, and just knowing what these things are even. And so then I realized that this has really changed my life. I became so much more secure. I started doing things that I was supposed to be doing, that I felt more passionate about. I felt fulfilled for the first time. And then I was like, this has changed my life. I have to teach this to other people, because if it's helped me, and it's helped, you know, all these other people that were in the same course, I have to be doing this. This is like really important, because there must be more people than me hiding away their spirituality and not have come out of their spiritual closet, as I call it. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing that, and that's when all the reactions came. So me and a friend of mine called Elizabeth Nordeng started this center called Soul Spring, where we had a 3-year education with energy healings and also body work. So that was the start of a 12-year adventure, and like 9 spiritual books on the topic.
Really?
Yeah, like about angels and how to connect with yourself, about highly sensitivity.
And people can still get those books now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of, I'll go back into that because I want to go deeper, but I want to weave this together from like how you guys kind of came together. So while that's happening, what was going on in your world?
Well, I want to kind of take the question that you had before, which was what your friend said about Norway, where they said it's not a lot about the racism. I have a very different take on it because of being a black man. Because when I came into the relationship with Märtha, she doesn't understand black culture. You know, she doesn't know what racism looks like and feels like. She doesn't understand the nuances that take place within that type of treatment towards people of color. And she didn't understand it until we came into the relationship. So my response and feeling towards Norway was very different than what she saw, because in the beginning, until she actually started learning about what those things are, and then she started to see it herself. So for me, I look at all societies as tribes, because I grew up in that type of knowledge of shamanism and understanding how we bring our consciousness together and we operate as a source of intellectual beings, both individually and simultaneously, creating a space for us to be able to thrive, right? So for me, my way of going into that was to see what type of tribe I was actually going into. And what I found was that it was very xenophobic. It was very captured in the idea of we are this way, this is the way we are. Anyone who's not like us, we're gonna push away. And then on top of the xenophobia, you have a society that is built on an old tradition, which is not even a real law, called the Yantala, which basically says, you don't have the right to think that you're better than me, and you don't have the right to tell people that you're great.
Wait, what is this now?
So it's not a law, it's like a
Okay.
cultural law. It's just a way of the Scandinavian countries that we diminish ourselves. And you're not supposed to think you're better than anybody else. You're not supposed to put yourself forward. Why would you think that your ideas are better than anybody else's?
Okay.
So why do you come with them at all, kind of thing.
Okay.
It's a very like cultural
Yeah,
aspect.
like if
That's
everyone
totally
wears-
against like what
If everyone
we-
wears gray, everyone wears gray, brown, dark blue, and black, you should too.
Okay. And then you show up and you're flashy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So I was raised differently. I was raised in a very family that was wealthy and influential in music and in arts. You know, my cousin is Fats Domino. My aunt was the world's first opera singer with Leoton Price for a mezzo soprano. I grew up in the arts. I grew up around Pavarotti and Placido Domingo. I grew up in expression. Everything was about expression. So, and then also growing up half in California and half in Hawaii. When you're in Hawaii, you live a very different life as according to the Ohana spirit, the way you express yourself. Everyone is your family. So you have a certain level of etiquette and a certain way that you show up with the respect to the ocean, the respect to the nature, the spirits, because in Hawaii we have very strong superstitions. So we believe that if at a certain time you don't cross that road because that's a sacred time. Like when I took Märtha the first time to Hawaii, I took her to the very sacred places that no one knows about. And, you know, there's just certain things you just don't do.
Like you
know?
ask permission before you walk into the ocean, right? You ask
Correct.
the water for permission, things like that, yeah.
Yes,
And then
you're in
there's
the
like-
river.
yeah.
Do you want to be disturbed? You leave offerings. You do these things. So for me, also living in the mainland as well and dealing with the mainland energy, what I learned growing up in America is that if you don't know yourself and you're not clear about who you are, people don't trust you. And so you live your life building yourself up, who you are, what type of person you are, what types of things that make you an individual person, and how you stand out in the world. Now, I've always been a person of fashion. I was a club kid in my younger years with Richie Rich and Lady Decure and all these different people in New York and Chicago and San Francisco. So I had friends who used to make all clothes out of like draperies and things of this nature and put me in platforms, and we would go to these events, and they weren't raves at the time because raves were not a thing. There were these technotronic parties, you know. There was a time when I was goth. And so every experience that I lived in is in the new wave experience, the hip hop experience when I was a break dancer. All of these things were different aspects of expression.
I feel like you still do that now.
Of course.
Like you're always transforming.
Yeah,
Of course.
I love that
He's
too.
like, now I'm recording an album. Now I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
like, it's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, and that to me is a very important aspect of the divinity of God, right? And the divinity of God comes in many forms and is not to be held in one form, because then God's expression is being limited. And so now here I am coming in as a black man, a man who likes men and women, okay? They call it bisexual. I call it soul sexual. I'm not letting people name me names.
I love that.
You know?
Yeah,
Start
I think
saying
that's
that.
so
Yeah.
cool.
I'm soul sexual,
Yeah.
and that's who I am, you know? But it's not every man I'm attracted to, and it's not every woman I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to the soul, to the essence, to the depth, to the conversation, to the sexiness in the way that they carry themselves on a spiritual level. That's a turn on for me. And so, but it's a soul energy. It's not just these things that are just based in appearance. So that's a part of me. And that's never going to go anywhere, you see. And so then you have the shaman, who's 6th generation, comes from a very deep-rooted training of who I am and how I perceive spirit and how my connection is with spirit, both on the the sides of both of my parents. My mom is Norwegian and East Indian, and my father is African and Creole and Haitian, and the family comes from West Africa. So, and our culture is Ifa, it's Yoruba, it's coming from where the Egyptians used to do their rituals. You see, it's the Awe, and so for me, coming into their people and watching how every time they open their mouth, they're putting themselves down. That affects me because I don't adhere to that type of behavior. I believe in edification of human beings. I believe that if you're going to speak, you should speak to lift or speak to edify someone in their power. So when they would talk, they would put themselves down, put themselves underwater. It's kind of like, it was like a weird feeling for me. And then they're xenophobic, and then they're racist, and they don't even know it.
It was just a different, I was going to say that earlier, a different form of racism where it's not blatant, it's just like, it's subtle, it's underlying.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's not like the way we get it here, where people just get up in your
Where
face.
you know where you stand.
And you know where you stand, and then now you know to decide how you're going to approach that. But this racism is, I'm racist, but I'm going to say I'm not racist because I don't even know what it is, but I do because it's in me, but I'm going to act like it doesn't exist. So I'm going to do these really rude things to you that are so racist. And then when you call it out, I'm going to be aggressively upset with you for you even having the nerve to say so. But the way we people of color have found how people are racist, and I was explaining this to her when we first came together. I actually did a trick on her to see if she had any racism in her, and of course she does. She's a part of the royal family. They're the number one racist of all.
Somebody said earlier, I don't know if it was a comedy special or something, and they were like making, not fun, but they were talking about Meghan Markle.
Yeah,
and they were
I
like,
remember that.
Why are you surprised? They are the original racists.
They're the originals.
She's like, they're the colonizers.
They're the OGs of the OGs.
Yeah.
And they live in a bubble, have no consciousness of that understanding. So then you have a situation where you have people who, the way we understand it as colored people, is that when someone judges you as a bad person before giving you the ability to be seen in the likeness and the beauty and the energy and the creativity and the love.
But I would say not even as a bad person, but just as before seeing you as you are.
Yes.
Just deciding what you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Deciding what you are.
Like kind of making that idea.
We call it the curve. This is how we look at it as colored people. We go, oh, this person is in the curve. So they're racist because they don't want to see me. They want to see their ideas of me and then try to prove those ideas of me by projecting it on me through their behavior, and then wanting me to take the bite or how do we say, the bait, and become what they have already decided me to be without giving me the opportunity to show up as I am. And so the moment I walked into her culture of her people, that's exactly what they did. It was rip me apart, make false stories about me, take things that I've written and flip it to fit their narrative, gang up on me, build posses against me. And when I say posses, meaning social groups of people gathering together for the purpose of hating me. And doing all of these nefarious things. Even her friends would do it at the dinner table. They would do it, people would do it in other gatherings when I would go to the royal weddings for other royals. Just like blatantly do it to you. And then the press does it, making comments like, oh, the king is gonna whip Durek, and then you see him
In the
marketplace getting whipped.
That was one. Yeah, they wrote it in the paper. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and every time my headline was, the black bisexual shaman. Every time they would interview me, it was always to trip me up so that they could make me look like a fool or a clown. And that's happening with the bombardment of people attacking me on Instagram, the death threats, the continuation of people sending me emails. I mean, go back to Africa, you monkey, the N-word, everything.
Yeah.
Everything you could ever imagine, death threats, everything you can imagine. And all of these things are happening, and it was for me processing it, like, wow. Like, I thought Norway was gonna be more evolved, because my mom used to always tell me, Norway's gonna embrace you. You're gonna be lifted amongst the people. People are going to take you in, and when you return to my motherland. Well, no, that's not what I felt at all, actually. It was kind of a shock, because as I was a kid, and I'm hearing this from my mom as a kid, all my childhood, she's giving me gifts from Norway and showing me things, and, and telling me that one day I'm gonna return to the motherland, and I'm gonna return to the place where her ancestors come from, and they're gonna embrace me and take me in and love the color of my skin and embrace me for my high cheekbones and my strength and my power and the Viking man inside of me. None of that happened. And so
What about now?
Now it's different. Now I'm the most famous guy in Norway.
Has it really flipped?
Yeah. And I think also, it's very different what they write in the papers and what people actually feel. So when we go somewhere, for example,
that's so true. I know that just from being a journalist.
Yeah,
it's
right.
So true.
Yeah. So when we go anywhere, there's like flocks of people coming. People flock around us.
Did that happen before you were together? Well, let's just say before you even met Shaman Durek, and you're on your own. You have a healing center, and because I know in other countries it's different. Like I remember I saw a really famous person once in Lebanon. And I was like, Mom, why is nobody bothered? She's like, they don't do that here.
No, that's actually normally the case in Norway too. So when I go by myself, nobody bothers me.
Even now?
Now.
Oh, but when you guys go together.
But when I go with him, they're all like, Shaman Durek! like this, and they're all like flocking around.
I wonder if it's like a
face.
Where they're like, you went through it, you did, and we respect you for not being like, F this, I'm leaving, I'm out. Like, I wonder if there's a respect there. Where it's like,
I think it's a half-half.
Yeah,
I don't think it's totally true, but I think with some people, yes. I think with other people that they actually think is kind of cool that I have chosen you too.
Yes.
That they see that you're actually really cool.
Yeah.
So that's like the perspective I saw when I met this couple, and they were like, we think this is so cool, this is what we need. They were also an interracial couple too.
Yes,
so
well.
Could be that.
Yeah.
Because
but also spiritual people in Norway, I think, very much embraces us.
Yeah, and the young kids now embrace me.
Yeah.
But I'm also a very, how do you say, I'm a very free spirit, and I think for them it's very like watching an interesting bird come in that they've never seen before, because I'm the type of person who you can walk down the street and spot me in a second. Because I'm not wearing black, brown, and dark blue the way they dress. They dress like Nautica, like they're all going on a Nautica boat for the day.
Right. Yeah.
Like everyone is Nautica.
Yeah.
And that preppy Nautica look where you have your pants and you have the shirt with the big watch and and this is the look, right?
Yeah.
And here I come wearing Gucci and rocking Versace pants that have like art paint on them and big moon boots and then one day I'm dressing country western and I have like a country western tie on and a shirt, and another day I'm just all leather, and I think for them it's like every time they see me they're just like, what is he wearing now? And also I'm very outspoken. I speak exactly what I believe, and I speak what I see and what I experience. I don't sugarcoat. I'm not here to play to people's emotions and dance around their emotions and hide myself from what they might think or say. I was raised as a strong black man to stand against adversity and to be able to stand in situations that other people might find uncomfortable. So they thought that they could come in, get me, beat me up, and not beat me up to get me to go away. Some of them want me to go away, but beat me up to get me to follow their rules.
Okay. Yeah.
Stop dressing this way, stop acting this way, stop speaking so loud, stop being so arrogant. Their arrogance, their idea of arrogance is me knowing myself. Stop thinking you're this amazing person when you're not. Stop, doing the things that we don't do.
So basically the same thing that happened with you when you opened the spiritual center in a different way, where they're like attacking to get you to just conform to what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But it hasn't worked on either of us.
Not at all.
Wow. And are they still trying, or are they like, all right, this is who they are?
I think that it's kind of coming with a snowplow, and it's like more space for us now.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool
than
that
in the
you're
beginning.
kind of giving permission to the people to also do that. Like,
And
hey,
that's what
express
people
yourself.
say.
Yeah.
That's really because I started my spiritual center in 2007, and from that day, the spiritual people in Norway started coming more and more out,
Yes.
and it's the more and more opening in society.
Hey, did you know that you're walking around like a radio tower, just broadcasting out these messages and frequencies on a subconscious level? And some of those broadcasts are negative, and they could be affecting the way people see you, the way people treat you. Did you also know that you're never upset for the reason that you think you're upset? We're also walking around with these trapped emotions, trapped old traumas from things that have happened to us in our past. And that's what I clear for people when they come and work with me one-on-one. We look for the subconscious blocks that are affecting you, and I clear them. Most people report the next day, if not that same day, they feel lighter, they feel happier, they feel free. And a lot of times you can check out the testimonials on my website to see people resolve physical illnesses and physical traumas like restless leg syndrome, eye pressure problems, cold feet, cold hands, anxiety. All of these things are things that I've seen get cleared when people work with me. It's all done on an energetic level. And the best part is that it's done remotely from the comfort of your home. We just get on a Zoom call, and in 30 minutes, you can experience what feels like 10 years of therapy. So if you're curious, go to www.frankelaridi.com, and I cannot wait to work with you. She explained her process of coming into the spirituality when she realized.
So you're a 6th generation shaman.
Yeah, what about you? I mean,
Yeah.
but 6th generation shaman, but you talk about clubbing, fashion, you're doing all this. So when did you actually embrace fully shamanism, and what did that look like?
I embraced shamanism when I was a little boy, but I wasn't ready to go full force into it because I felt like I wanted to explore the world, more. And I felt like I needed to express these aspects of myself. And in shamanism, there is this thing where it's about allowing your spirit to venture. So it's not, so it was okay for the spiritual, what we call upheaval to happen, because it basically enlightens you to the understanding of human development, sociology. It gives you an understanding of the anthropology of the world, because you can't just be a shaman unless you're in a tribal culture and you're secluded only with that tribe. Then you only know what that tribe and the knowledge within that tribe and what the elders have passed down to you. But when you're a shaman who's born in the Western world, in order for you to adapt to the knowledge and information that you have been given by your ancestors and by the family members, you won't be able to process it and understand how it relates to this world until you start to venture into this world and see and understand the nuances of human development. So even though I started training at a very young age, it really helped me to start understanding why people do the way things that they do, when they're telling the truth and when they're not, why are they blinking more times than not, why are they twitching, why are they touching their eyebrow. All of these things help me. So going into modeling, going into that world, going into the world of entertainment, going into being a club kid, was all about expressing different aspects of myself and then seeing how it relates to how other people express themselves as well too. And that gives people a greater understanding of what is actually available in the world, because you can't be a really great shaman if you don't know people. Like, you can take a shaman from the jungle, and here's what will happen. You take a shaman from the jungle, and this is why Spirit is bringing more shamans into the Western world, and people could be living in the apartment up in Bronx, and all of a sudden they wake up and they know that they're a shaman.
Yeah.
Because Spirit figured out that shamans in the indigenous cultures are only exposed to the indigenous culture and the people. When they come into the Western world, it's a shock. Now, most shamans won't tell you that they're under shock because they want to maintain this image of, this is who they are and this is what they represent in their indigenous culture. But they can't handle certain things when it comes to the way the world is today. They're not, a shaman in indigenous culture isn't going to be able to understand why the Wall Street man is doing corruption, because his understanding of what he will be able to help him to is by either, if he's an earth shaman, give him plant medicine to help him figure it out, to guide him to figure it out, to create a space for him to figure it out. But he won't be able to go in spiritually and look at it from a place of both scenes, be able to see what made him that way from the perspective of human society and the understanding of sociology, and what created the pressure and the nuances that built those formations of character, and then how to be able to transfer those characters and put them back in the right place if he doesn't have the knowledge of plant medicine. But there's different types of shamans. There's spirit shamans, there's air shamans, there's water shamans, there's fire shamans, and there's earth shamans. And so I'm a spirit shaman. So my training is to be able to speak to spirit, to know spirit upside down, backwards, forwards, and in between. When an entity enters the room, I can tell you exactly what kind of entity it is. I can tell you its weak spot. I can tell you what makes that entity get weaker, what makes that entity stronger, what that entity is going to do in your space.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Do you feel anything here?
Oh, yes, of course.
Are they positive?
Yeah, you have a couple portals in here, and you have a woman who walks these floors, and she comes and sometimes looks at you and checks you out. I don't feel any nefarious entities, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. No, either way, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel a spirit,
and this
a woman spirit.
Someone for me, or just lives in this property?
No, this is a woman who's connected into your family bloodline, on your mother's side.
So this is something that you activate, or you're just like, are you looking for it ever, or
It just lets me know, because I'm a spirit shaman, so I can sense energy frequency patterns moving differently. So in a room, there's waves, right? And then there's waves that are moving like this, and then there's ocular waves that are moving, and then there's waves that move like this, and then there are waves that are linking and turning into another wave and then taking off, kind of like the cells in your body, right? And so when I enter a room, that's what I feel. And then when I feel space between those waves, that's a spirit. Okay. Never really explained it to anyone because no one's ever asked me, but
that's so interesting.
Yeah, so.
Oh, you haven't heard it before either?
No, I've never heard that before.
Well, you never asked me.
No, I know.
I'd be asking questions all day.
That's so interesting.
Right, and so what happens is when there's that space, then you know there's spirit, but then you know what type of spirit it is by what it is actually casting off energetically.
But here's the interesting thing for me asking that, right? It's like, we're in this room, we're doing an interview. It's not like we're just casually hanging out and you can just stop and ask you can, right? But you just stop and ask it, or in your mind even. So when you're aware of, let's say, this woman. Yes. And I'm in the middle of asking you a question, and all of a sudden you're aware of her, let's say. Is there something going on between you and her while you're listening to me ask the question? No,
I'm aware of the frequencies and how they're moving.
But you'll immediately
And that's how I can see there's portals too, because I can see portals because there's a magnetic pull and it goes out and then it comes back in, and that's a portal. That means things are coming out, coming in, coming out, coming in. But then there's portals that are just sitting there that aren't moving, and it's just magnetic energy, something maybe you could have brought into the home, or someone you brought into the home, and they left that energy there through what we call continuous echoes. So echoes are energy frequencies or diameter frequencies that are created by both mind and emotional thought and feeling that someone leaves when they have disruption. So let's say there's someone who's discongruent to the pattern of who they are. Maybe they're an angry person or a person who thinks negative thoughts, right? If they're in your space for a long period of time, they start releasing these echoes. And these echoes then start to release. This is why you should sage your place or Palo Santo or put a bowl of water with salt. So when someone, let's say, is arguing in a space, what human beings don't understand, and they will in the next 7 years, is that when you argue, you send off what are called discordant frequency waves. These discordant frequency waves looks for other waves to build. So they're like gooey. It's like a gooey energy.
Is this like a misery loves company kind of thing, where people who are misery, they love to just talk to each other and build on that misery?
Yes,
because
because these frequencies are like viruses, and they find each other and clamp onto each other and then send out more to get more to come in. So whoever's in that frequency will then start pulling in more of that same frequency. Their job is to see, just like we have in our body cells and so forth, we have the same thing happening in the universe and also in the planetary atmosphere. So in the planetary atmosphere, we have what are called spirit sprites. Spirit sprites are all around you. They're in this room everywhere. They're outside, they're everywhere. And those are the things that allow you to build your spiritual energies in any one dimension. Then you have all these other things in there, like you have certain types of energies that will allow you to get viruses that will make you, like when people get sick, it's because they've taken in a certain amount of these energies, and now the body can't sustain itself because the inflammation starts building up. The body's endocrine system is not able to flush out all of these things. But the reason why it's happening is because your first line of defense is energy. So when your energy defense is gone, then it goes into your mental defense, your emotional defense, and your physical defense. And the mental and emotion goes quick, especially if you're not a fortified person. So when you have someone arguing, the argument, if they have a dog in the room, the dog is now getting sick. Your plants are getting sick, depending what kind of plants you have, because everything is being affected on an energetic level. And if the arguing is continuous, it starts affecting the outward neighbors and the people who live next to them and the people who live next to them. And it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. And it becomes this nasty, yucky energy. So when shamans see that energy, or spiritual people who have what we call mystical seeing, be able to see, they notice, some people will notice it as a feeling of heaviness. Others will feel like, wow, I just feel so tired in your place, because it pulls and drains energy. Other people might feel like all of a sudden they were like fully centered in their thoughts, and now all of a sudden their thoughts are discombobulated. Why do I feel like there's fog in my brain? Why do I feel like I can't think thoroughly? That's because you have that energy in your space. And so we always say, get rid of echoes, get rid of that type of energy. You can call it negative cellular memory blockage, basically. Negative cellular memory blockage means that energy basically blocks and limits your cell energy, your skin energy, your life force energy, anything that gives off what we call vibrancy, right? So what is vibrancy? If I say to you, you're a powerful, good-looking, amazing man, that's vibrancy. That means I am releasing to you a code that is formulated to take you to expansion, right? That means that code also exists within me, or I would never be able to release it.
Really?
Yes. So if someone says something negative to you, they're trying to release a code to you in hopes that you are so centered on what people think about you that you will take that code into your being, and that's a virus. And that virus is now being released in the spirit world to you. And that person holds the code of that virus. So when I see people do that, I said, you're spreading a virus. Do you realize that? When you're sharing fear, you're spreading the virus. You're making the virus stronger. And you're giving the virus an opportunity to learn about human conditioning so it can find more ways to break down the mental and emotional processes of the body. And in shamanism, we call them spirits. And why I feel like the world is at a disadvantage because of their inability to truly understand frequency. Not just the frequency that comes from music, but the frequency that comes from vibrancy, the frequency that comes from the plants, the frequency that comes from the ocean, the frequency that comes from the wind, the sun, the moon. All of these frequencies are there to strengthen your vibrancy so that you can tap into your vibrancy, and your vibrancy has its own consciousness. And that consciousness, which has been played out in cultures of Sanskrit, such as the chakras, those are living consciousness. You have what are called the 68 gates of awareness, which is in the African culture, which represents how in which you perceive the nuances of when someone is speaking to you and versus when someone is thinking. Like, I can sit in a room and watch someone just sitting there and be fully aware of what's going on inside of their thoughts. And I can hear their emotions, I can hear their thoughts, I can hear their body communicating, I can hear all these different parts of their consciousness communicating, and I can also see if it's in harmony or disharmony. And I can say to someone, you're really hard on yourself. And they go, how do you know that? I said, well, because your emotional vibrancy should be bigger than your mind vibrancy. Your mind vibrancy should not be bigger than your spiritual vibrancy. Your spiritual vibrancy should be the biggest because it is the communicator of all there is. It is the quintessential energy of Mother God, Father God, Child God. It is the essence of the wisdom of Trinity. It's the Trinity divinity. It's the energy of all that is knowing in the universe is available to you through that consciousness, if the mind will just accept it. So that's why you meditate. You meditate not so you can get comfortable or relax your body. You meditate so that you can have access to that consciousness. Why? Because once you do, that's what you listen to. You don't listen to things that people say on earth.
So true. Because
it's a hodgepodge of what we call formated energy. What is formated energy? Formated energy means I got energy from, you told me some information, I've taken that information and added something else to it, and now I pass the ball to someone else, and that information now has spikes on it, and it has glue on it, and now that person takes it, and they put some stuff on it, and then they give it to this person, and that person's supposed to make choices off of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different energies, or they get direct source code. And direct source code is that consciousness. And that consciousness then communicates to the mind on what action and direction to take, which we call divine action, divine knowledge and wisdom, and divine knowing. And that goes into your emotions. Now your emotions is getting the right information so that the feminine energy of your emotions, which is Mother God, is able then to expand the magnetic frequencies from your body and connect into the frequencies that you want to be brought in. This is what it means to be an alchemist or a spiritual alchemist. And the energy frequencies from there then manifest into what we call density form. So the density form of the matter then begins to maneuver itself to those magnetic frequencies, and now you're able to connect the pieces on earth to build whatever it is you need to build. You see? But if people are not listening to their spirit, and they're listening to their circumstances or the things that they went through in life or the things they were told or the things they read or the things they saw on TV, but they never go directly to source, then when they go to confront something, they don't confront it in what we call understanding of divinity within them, right? Divine knowing. They confront it through analyzation. And what is analyzation? Taking what you already know and trying to apply it to everything else that you see. And what happens then? Well, you hit your head against the wall because you're afraid of the unknown. And the unknown, what is in the unknown? consciousness, divinity consciousness. So when people are afraid of the unknown, really people are control freaks, and people feel they have to control other people and they can't let other people be who they want to be, or they create constructs of like, well, if God doesn't show up like this, then I'm not going to believe in God. And if my friend doesn't act like this as a friend, then that's not a friend. And if this is, and they, all these constructs get built, and it creates this mechanism which the Matrix uses to keep you a slave. And that is what the downfall of humanity, and why we still have war, why we still have conflict, because the primal duality is what's still sitting in that field of consciousness. Then above that is the removal of duality, which is the liberated spectral consciousness, which is expressing yourself as many forms of God as you choose, the multidimensional awareness of quantum. And then going a little bit higher than that is what we call the oneness of self as the oneness of all, right? Meaning that I know you because I know me. And if I want to know you more, I just got to know myself more. Mm-hmm. So it's the inner becomes the unfolding of all in one. And that is what every guru, every shaman, every mystic, every person is giving pieces and pieces to show people, not the full spectrum of it, because human beings will have a meltdown because they'll think, oh, what do you mean? Like, you telling me I don't have my own consciousness? No, you are a consciousness within 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 a consciousness. And if we were to show you all the consciousnesses of you, oh yes.
Oh, wow. I literally thought it was, I'm an individual consciousness within the one consciousness.
Oh, no, darling. Your body is over 1 million consciousnesses of elemental spirits that chose to be your finger.
Is that an empowering thought, or is that a...
It's fabulous, because I could actually communicate to, like, I could say to your throat right now, I could say, spirit of the throat, wake up. Mm-hmm. See what happened?
Yeah, swallow.
Spirit of the throat, wake up and shift your frequency to level 5.9. Mm-hmm. And tell me when you start to feel yourself being moved. And I'll keep speaking to your spirit of the throat. Wake up. I know you can hear me.
Okay. Maybe that's part of it, right? Just a laugh wanting to come out.
Yes, because you're restricting.
Yeah.
You're restricting, right? Mm. And when you go into the aspect of 5.9, you're accessing dimensional fields of pleasure, joy, ecstasy, and bliss, which most people are afraid to express.
Can we say that to any part of the body, 5.9, or is that specific to throat?
That's just specific to throat, because your throat is your communicator to the world, right? So when I said spirit of the throat, the elemental that chose to create its code when you were inside of the cell form, the energy form of the sperm and the egg, that also had the intelligence of the DNA and RNA. Also in the DNA and RNA is what is called an energy plasma. And that energy plasma is living spirits that merge those things together to make sure that they build exactly the right cell combination to keep, coming from each other. So your throat is a living elemental spirit. So when you speak, that's why I love a lot of things that like Dr. Emoto would talk about, that when you speak, you are affecting the stars, you are affecting the plants, you are affecting your cells, you are affecting everything, because every spirit is paying attention to you. And your words are what we call living codes. And they are also spirits. Wow. So when you say to someone, I love you, it sends a vibrational frequency into your being and then expands outward into everything around you.
Princess Märtha, I want to go back to angels too, communing with angels. I'm going to ask you both a question right now, and I'll let you both answer it one by one. So Durek first, Shaman Durek, the mirrors I want to ask about, because in my interview with Shaka Khan last week, she's like, mirrors are portals. I call hotels before I go and I make sure there's not a mirror in my room. Like, she's very serious about not sleeping with a mirror in her room. And I said, well, why? She talks about scrying and doing a meditation in the mirror. And I said, have you tried it? And she's like, heck no, I'll never do that. And I was like, well, why not? And she said, because of the shadow people that are gonna come, that could come through or whatever else. So I want to ask about mirrors with you. And then with Princess Märtha, I want to ask about angels. More and more, I'm realizing that this podcast is like the spirits joke on me to think that I have a job and that I'm doing this thing, but really it's part of I'm learning so much in my spiritual journey. And I saw in an ayahuasca journey 2 years ago, I don't ever want to be disrespectful to the medicine, so I don't say I'm done with it, but I finished what I think I'm doing with plant medicine. And but she showed me a speakerphone, like a microphone, and she's like, this is what you'll be doing. This is part of the spiritual path. And finally now I'm realizing this podcast is what she meant. And when you said angels, I have a 38 behind my ear tattoo from like 12 years ago, from when I first started getting messages from angels. And it started with me. I was with a friend and I was staying at his house. He had this big book of angels on his coffee table. And I was like thinking to myself, I've never thought about angels. I've never acknowledged them, never even thought about them. I don't know if they're real, they're fake. I just never thought about it. So I said, I'm gonna ask them right now, give me a sign if you're really there, and a sign that there's no way I would mistake it. I get to the airport like 30 minutes later. All 3 of my bags weigh 38 pounds. My boarding pass said gate 38. And I'm still thinking, whatever. I didn't know synchronicities back then, but the woman that was the ticketing agent was freaking out. I've been here for 20 years. I've never seen 3 bags weigh the same and your gate. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, lady, you know? Like, I get to the gate, my book that I was reading, I opened the book, I'm on chapter 38. And I thought, this is so interesting. So I reach out to a friend and say, what do you think this means? And she Googled it, and it was like, your angels want you to know they heard you. Was like the Google. Whether that's true or not, it's the message I received.
Yeah, that's the important part.
Yeah, right? The message that I got. So since then, ever since I see 38, it's like the most random, weird, like all moved into this condo and there was a package waiting for me with a big 38 on a marker. Like, why,
wow.
right? Like things like that. So I was in Spain a couple of weeks ago, like I said, and this girl comes into the room that was a mutual friend of one of the guys that I was hanging out with. And she says, yeah, I speak to angels. I'm a channeler. And she said, do you have a connection with angels? The first thing she said when she walked in. And when she said that, my phone lit up and it was 4:38. And there was no message, nothing came through. There was no like reason for it to light up. It's just 38. Then the next day I meet this breathwork instructor and he said, hey, have you met Amela yet? She talks to angels. And he says, so basically she talks to you. And I'm like, I don't know what he meant by that or what he means and what's going on, but something is unfolding little by little. And I'm just like giddy and excited to see what all that is. You know, so I do want to know more about the angels because I don't fully understand. And then I want to ask about mirrors too. So whoever wants to go first.
Mine's gonna be short and sweet.
Okay,
I can just give it to you really quick. Mirrors are dimensional doorways. Dimensional doorways means that there are what are called spectrums within the mirrors. And so there are, if you ever take a mirror and you can move it into a certain angle, you could see the different spectrums. And so in a mirror, it's a portal to the spirit world. It's one portal to the spirit world. So if you ever have dreams and you ever see a mirror in a dream, you can jump in it and it will take you into another dimension. It's quite nice.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's amazing. And the thing that you're talking about as far as looking in the mirror and doing scrying comes from an old time, an ancient time in Egypt, where they would use these black mirrors and they would scry to be able to communicate. And this was done by the priestesses, more so by those in the temples, not the people who are like just around, the people in the temple. And you look into the mirror and you can ask it questions and the spirits will reveal things to you.
How so though? Will they reveal it in words, in downloads, in images?
It will be as images in the mirror. Your face might change and a spirit might be talking to you through your face changing. It could be an image that appears in the mirror that you see. And this has been then brought in also into different cultures and then brought into Western witchery, like, the witches of today. They do these mirror gazings and so forth with black mirrors. The thing is that when we're talking about the situation you're saying with Shaka Khan, is that she's not fully present with her light. So if she was present fully with her light, she wouldn't be afraid of anything coming through, right? So she is present with the belief that something is outside holding her light for her. And if she was present with her light, she'd be like, whoever comes through, come through, because I'm the child of God. And
that's what I said to her. And then, anyways, don't you think like whatever comes through is meant to, and you're stronger than it, and you're bigger if it was a menacing, you know? And she was like, hell no.
Yeah, and that's because she has been programmed by the underworld spirits to be afraid of them, so she'll never venture into their world. Because the underworld spirits don't want this, what we call the spirits that have unfinished business. They don't want you to interact directly with them in their world, because they know that every time you do, you're bringing more light into their dimension, and they don't want that. And so their job is to keep it dark and keep it not with your light. So a lot of times when people have dreams where they can't turn on a light in the dream, that's because they're in the underworld. And so when you go to approach a spirit, it wants to be able to talk to you, not you talk to it. And spirits in the realm of light want you to talk to them, and they want to talk back to you. And the spirits in darkness will talk back to you if you do talk to them, because they know they have to, but they don't want you to give them love. They don't want you to know that you can give them love. They want you to see them as scary. They want you to see them
What would happen if you gave it love?
They would transform into the light.
And so, they don't know that they want that themselves. They don't know that they want that themselves.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what makes them stuck.
Whoa. So they're really the victims.
Victims.
Or they're stuck, I should say.
They can't forgive themselves.
They're stuck in their own.
I think they're unworthy of love.
Were they beings ever? Were they human beings?
Yes.
Oh. Whoa, that must have been a dark thing to go through.
Yeah, well, when you die and you have your whole life shown to you, and how every action and every word you said, and how it affected other people, and not just one person, but how it affected the chain of events. And you see that those chain of events have led to something that you yourself can't accept. And when the light comes and says, okay, you have to let all this go and come into a place of love, and you're seeing all of this, and you have consciousness, some spirits just can't accept it.
Wow.
So they walk away from the light and they go into the underworld.
Is the answer, though, in the end for everybody light? Like, is that the inevitable?
The only reason why we're on this planet is for them. We have no need to come to this planet.
We're doing this for them.
Yes. We're not here to... We're not here on this planet because we're trying to learn something.
This is not a vacation. This is like,
We come from a realm that has no suffering and no pain. It's pure love. It's pure joy. In heaven, you might have someone's heaven look like a roller coaster park, and someone's heaven look like an ice cream parlor, and someone's heaven look like an ocean with dolphins jumping. Some people are...
Mine would be like 10,000 cats, and I'm just like...
if that's your heaven, that's your heaven. And maybe you might want to be a cat as well.
Oh, wow.
And maybe your another person's heaven is that they're not even in human form. They're made of energy or sound or whatever. It exists it's a multi-dimensional universe of whatever makes you happy.
It's like being in a VR game where you just choose the reality, and that's okay, you're going to be in my story. Is that how it is? Like,
well, it's like everyone's consciousness is creating this place of infinite joy and play. It's like being in the most amazing playground you've ever been in, and it never ends. All I have to do is to visit someone is to think about them. Or I can go to community places that we all created together, and go meet up and meet people. It's really beautiful. And it's funny because when you look at the metaverse and you look at what people are doing with AI and technology, it's very similar to what heaven is like, where you have this place, community place, and then everyone has their own worlds. That's exactly what it looks like. And it's quite funny how they're transcribing that down into technology and code. But the thing is that here on Earth, this is a different dimension.
It's just more dense, or?
It's dense because there are beings like reptilians who are supporting us in our ability to not destroy ourselves so quickly. So for instance, in heaven, if I say I want ice cream, the ice cream's instantly there. And the flavor and everything, it's all there.
Because it knows that you're going to only create conscious things and not anything destructive, right? But here, if you just had that ability, you'd be like, I want an atomic bomb.
Boom.
Whoa. Okay, got it.
You got it. So the reptilians have created this field that has constructed itself in what we call grid patterns that are all around us. So that way, whenever you use your powers, it doesn't happen right away.
Wait, but they get a bad rap.
Of course they do.
I've only heard bad things about reptilians.
Well, of course, because human beings are stuck under the duality field. It's easy for human beings to say something is bad versus good. You didn't hear me say that darkness was bad, did I?
Right,
No, because darkness amplifies light.
Yeah.
Right? So even though they're underworld beings, they still serve God. They serve the source, the divine, but what they serve it through is by strengthening you in your light.
Is it serve God or is it just another expression of God?
It is God.
Yeah, that's okay.
But it's the aspect of God that amplifies the light in you. So when you understand?
Yeah,
so so think of imagine if there's 20 dark spirits in the room and they're coming at you, right? And you're a person who doesn't use your powers ever. Well, now you're going to start using your powers because you're going to have to learn how to get those 20 spirits into the light. And then to do that, you're going to have to raise your frequency, increase your vibration, open up your psychic abilities, do this. So they're pushing every button of discomfort in you to get you to a higher dimensional field so that you can bring them home. And they don't even realize they're in that service to do that and why.
Okay, I have such a huge follow-up question with that, but I want to ask about angels. It's something came to me that I'm like, I need to ask about this. Okay. But
Well,
first,
ask it if you
But
want
let me
to.
finish with the reptiles. So the reptilians get a bad rap because human beings are in the field of duality and they feel that anything that causes them resistance must be bad. Instead of realizing that there are some beings in the universe that create resistance for us for the purpose of us having time and space to be able to correct and refine our power source so that we are not destroying other dimensional fields.
It goes back to like everything you think or do affect even the stars.
Of course.
Yeah.
And think human beings are a very dominant race. We dominate nature. We dominate other beings that don't even want us to know they exist until we're ready to come with a kind heart, like fairies and gnomes and elves and all them. You can't see them walking around, but I do and they talk to me. They're like, thank you for what you're doing to get people to be more kind to us, to see us, and that we just don't want our worlds dominated anymore.
Oh, so do they purposely not show themselves because they know we'll try to put them in little jars and do things and whatever else?
We want to dominate them.
Yeah.
We want to take over their system. We want to analyze them. We're not yet in harmony with sentient beings.
And that changes?
It will change more and more as time moves on because you'll get to a point where love will transcend all aspects of what you think the construct of humanity is in color and race and sex, and all of that will be transcended because there will be an awakening with other beings that will be brought forth that won't look and be like us. And human beings will have no other choice but to begin to start the integration process.
God, it's so wild for me to think about that because like it seems so basic, right? Like to accept little things like that and be comfortable with things like that. But you're right, like how can we expect people to be comfortable with seeing a reptilian or a whatever if they can't even accept a different color, a different sexuality, somebody who's wearing a jacket that's too bright? Like what? I didn't even think of how, we're in our world sometimes that is so light and airy and this and that I forget that the world's not all like that.
No, they live in fear, and their fear is, let me dominate you and then take you apart and then control you, instead of accept you, embrace you, and see you as kindred.
Yeah.
So, of course, you're going to get people going, well, Palladians do this and Arcturians do this. I said, you guys, Palladians, Arcturians, and all of them doing all of these things is not the way you see it. You see it that way because you're under a field. So you're only seeing a certain understanding of what is possible for you to see.
And that's also what I think is so interesting with like having connection with the spirit world, because you see things in one way, but then somebody sees it in that particular way, or this or that way, and then they write it in a book, and then that's the only way. But then if somebody else looks at the same thing, then they'll get their perception, which might be totally different, might be a different color, different shape, a different form, a different way of communicating.
And then they think that's wrong.
And then they think that that's wrong. So all the time when I have like people in courses and you start communicating like with yourself or angels, or you get pictures, or you can get pictures, you can hear things, you can feel things, you know, you use all your senses also in that aspect. And usually they're like, I didn't get anything. You know, I just felt this like touch on my shoulder. I was like, yeah, that's a thing. Oh, yeah. That's a touch on your shoulder. Like, we're so good at undermining what we are because it's supposed to be correct, because everything we learn in the world is right or wrong. Like you learn that in school, even that's the first thing you learn. This is the right answer, this is the wrong answer, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. But when you talk to spirit, there is no right or wrong. And that's the first thing I always say at courses, like, today, there's no right and wrong, everything is okay. And you also have to like go into it accepting whatever comes. And that's really hard because we're so trained in our minds to go in with a certain, I'm supposed to do this correctly, and this is what I'm supposed to experience.
And this is what it looks like.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe they have read a book where, for example, an angel is supposed to look like this, and that angel is supposed to look like that, and this and that and this and that. No, it's not like that. So
it can be like a homeless person on the street was an angel and came and spoke to me, and that's how they gave me the message. Is that, do you think, or?
For example, but I'm more talking about the angels that you see on the other side now, like in the spirit world.
Like Sylvia Brown.
Right.
Yeah.
When she says, this person came to her and said, oh, I saw this angel and it was glowing blue and whatever. And then she said, oh, you're not talking to the right, you're not talking to the angel.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah.
She used to do that all the time.
And people, when they see angels in the spirit realm, they can see the same angel. One person can see the same angel as a woman who's pink, for example, or blue, whatever. And then the other person sees the same angel as a man who's green, for example, because that's the perception and that's the frequency that the energy wants to meet you, or the angel wants to meet you right now.
Brilliant.
And that's where...
And that kind of is like a mirror, which is so interesting that we just talked about mirrors too, right? It's almost like you see what you want to see in the mirror of this. Like, this thing is so powerful. Maybe it's doing so many different little prisms, and you just pick up the one that resonates with you.
Yes, because that's where that energy can relate to you. That's where you can relate to it, and that's where the communication comes in more directly. You know, if they had shown up as something different, then that wouldn't be relatable for you, so you wouldn't understand the message. And so they always come in where they can relate to you, and the message comes through in that way. But and because they're just energy as well, they're also both female and male, or they come across as female and male, because they're that difficult word that I can never say anything. Androgynous.
Androgynous.
Androgyne, it's called in Norwegian. Because everything in the universe has a male and female energy, and that's also why some people see it as male while others see it as female, because they have both. So it's where you can meet that energy right there. And another thing I think is really interesting, like in this spiritual realm, is also that because we have hierarchies in our world, like I'm better than you, you're better than that, and I'm not as good as that person, blah blah blah, we also build that same system in the spirit world.
Exactly.
So we see...
So like archangels
are better than no, that's not the case.
Interesting.
It's just that they have a different frequency than those angels. But when you actually talk to them, they say, no, of course we're not better than. We just have a different mission. We have a different
assignment.
Energy level than the others. But nothing is better or worse. That's our way of seeing it. It's the same as saying that I'm better than you. How on earth can I even say that I'm better than anybody else in the world? Because everybody's carrying the light of God, and everybody's here to experience. So why do we put this hierarchy into system? You know, that's to be controlled. That's to be have people in fear so that some people can control. You know, and that's not the way of spirit. But it's so interesting how we put that system of being in a hierarchy into that other realm, but just because that's our perception. So then we build this, and then you're on this level, and then you have to go up here, and then you have to be a bit better, and then a bit better. For me, that's not the way it is. It's just get that communication, start learning from them, and then you'll understand. And another thing I think is really interesting is also that because I have been in connection with spirit for many years, then also starting downloading information, getting that. And when I met Durek, it was like, but we've taught that at our center. Like, and I've never been into shamanism. I didn't really know that much about shamanism. I know they have connection with nature and all this, you know, but I didn't know what it was. But the same things, because it comes from source, it comes in the same wavelength in a way as all these things. So we were so like kindred spirits when we met, because I've had that experience, although I haven't worked with shamans or, you know, like, and I understood so much of what he was doing, and vice versa, because we have that connection with spirit. And when you have that clear download and clear connection, then you don't need all the other in-between things that teach you that this is right or this is wrong or this is what you do, whatever. And that's the core information. And of course, the core information is what shamans have too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why all shamans can get together and be able to understand each other's ways, because there is a defining point within all shamanisms that are connected. And it's just the cultural way that they choose to express it, but the rooted knowledge is still the same. And so when I'll talk to a Peruvian shaman or an African shaman or a Mongolian shaman, they all understand exactly what I'm talking about, because they understand the rooted knowledge. And that's really what it's about. And it was really fascinating too. And I love what Märtha is saying, because she's so smart and so amazing. And it's one of those many reasons why I'm in love with her, is that in the understanding of the hierarchy that humans create, they create hierarchies in the understanding of the development of spirit from this place of being intense with themselves, like being hard on themselves, you know? And that's not how the spirit world operates. The spirit world doesn't operate by beating up on each other and then you rise. Like that's not the energy. And also the understanding of how if one person is perceiving something and another person perceives something, it's not about canceling out what they perceive. It's about realizing that they're seeing in the spectrum that they need to see in. Like, and what Märtha was saying, what humans do is they say, oh, well, if it's not the way I perceive it, then you're wrong or you're not good enough. Right.
But I also always say that, like if there were 3 people, say, on a sailboat, nobody else knew how to sail, and they were out at sea. And one was in the front of the boat, one was steering the boat, and one had the main sail. When they came back from that trip, they would tell 3 different stories from exactly the same experience, with the same wind, the same water, the same waves, the same boat. But they would have a different perception, and that's exactly what it is. It's also like a ball, you know, like if we have a ball here, you see one side of the ball, you see one side of the ball, I see one side of the ball, but it's still the same ball.
So true.
And so it doesn't mean that although we have different perceptions and way of seeing things, that we are seeing that is not true. Because it is true, it's just different parts of truth. And that's also why we get all these different angles and way of, this is the right path, no, this is the right path, no, this is the right path, you know? But all paths are right.
Beautiful and delightful in every way.
Because they come from source.
Yes.
Or when they are connected to source. You know?
And also there's this really defining issue on planet Earth, which causes a great disruption in the human development factor of evolution, is that human beings thrive. They were created in the perfection of love. but then they were put into a world where the understanding of the development of the species was based in the development of you get love or you get love taken away. So humans have developed this idea that if they're perfect, then they will be loved and things will go right for them and everything will happen.
Love, rather than just it being you're right. It's like
exactly. Yeah. So when you try to be perfect, you limit spirit, you limit creation in God. You there's no way you can talk to your ancestors because they're not going to argue with you. Mm-hmm. They're not going to go in debate with you. That's not how they operate. Mm-hmm. So they just hold space for you when you're ready to stop playing the game of I need to be right and learn to take instruction, because you need their instruction on this planet, because this isn't what heaven used to be like. This is a dense frequency. Mm-hmm. Our powers are different here than it is in the higher realms. So we actually have situations where if we don't listen to their instruction, then we will make choices that are agenda-based choices and governed by incorrect information. Therefore, we will get hurt. And that's where we have to learn to be humble and still be the child aspect, where we are being open to what Spirit says. So if Spirit says to me, Shaman Durek, we want you to do this, 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 and this. I don't go, no, I'm not going to do that because I really want to do this. No, because if I know the moment I deny that wisdom, I'm going to get hurt.
But isn't that also the worst thing when it's like you want Spirit so badly to say, what is my path? Like, what is, I've had this, what is my path? Show me, what is my path? And then they showed me and I was like, no. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Like, seriously, I cannot do that. That's too scary. That's too much. That, like, I cannot do this spiritually, like change Norway. I cannot like stand out and be that front figure. I cannot have all that, but then when you continue having that conversation and you move through your fears and move through all of this, suddenly it just happens because you're continuing and listening to Spirit. And it's not like that your life changes like boof, like it goes slowly, steadily, and suddenly, oh yeah, I didn't even realize now I'm here,
Like meeting this woman. All my life, I've dated women and men, more women than men. But at one point, I got to a point where I felt like the women that I were dating were not evolved enough for me to feel like I could create something beautiful with them. It was like me being their teacher all the time. And so I kind of just thought maybe I'm going to be with men because I can connect with men, I understand men, and I thought it was going to be this way. So one day I asked Spirit, I would like to see the person that I'm going to be with in the future. And now all of a sudden, Spirit says, go lay down and we'll show you. So I lay down. All of a sudden, I'm transported to this house and it's snowing. And there's like this door and there's stairs to the left that go up.
Cross-country skiing.
And I'm going up the stairs in this house, okay? And I see this person laying down in this bed. And I go to reach to pull the blanket back to see who they are. And this ET comes in and goes, he is not ready to see. Therefore, pull him out of this simulation. And I see the ET like drawing these symbols, and then all of a sudden this wind comes and it pulls me out and I wake up. I've gone to psychics. Psychics say to me, are you sure you're gonna be with a man in the future? I go, yeah. They're like, well, that's not what we see. And I go, well, what do you see? They said, we see you with a woman, a military woman who comes from a military family. And I said, well, you are obviously not, I was a little...
Not the real deal. Like
he started going off with the person.
You're obviously not practicing your divination properly, and, because that's definitely not going to happen. I'm not going to be with a woman who's a part of a military family. It's just not going to happen. I mean, what does that look like? Like, that's crazy. Yeah. And one psychic said...
My father's the head of a military.
I figured.
And another psychic said to me, I see a man wearing a blue with gold buttons, older, kind of bald, and another man wearing blue gold buttons with brown hair, and they're standing next to each other, and that's the woman's brother and father, and they're in the military. And I was like, you see a suit with gold buttons. You know, and it's no matter how many times, even my mom told me when I was young, she said, you're going to be in the future married to the Princess of Norway. And I was a teenager, and all my friends heard it. And we were thinking she was crazy. Because when you're not ready to hear or accept, you will do everything to convince yourself otherwise.
You know what's weird? I have to, because I like to make this personal too, and people can pick up from that.
Sure.
I was a journalist for so many years, where I was a TV journalist traveling the world, and I was in Mexico, and she was like doing magnets, using magnets all over my body, and then she said, you're a healer, and she had a translator, her son-in-law, and I was like, no, I'm a journalist, and she was like, you're a healer, and she's like, let me show you how I use the magnets, and I was so stubborn, I was like, no, like just do it on me, like I don't need to learn how to do, and I did not want to learn. Because I was so afraid of what that would mean or what that would look like to be a healer, and now that's all I do, and I work with magnets specifically, and I didn't even learn it from her, I learned it from someone else.
Exactly.
A year or two later.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And so we can either be resistant to the path or just be open to the possibility. If I was more open to the possibility of what was being said to me, then things, for me, maybe she would have came in sooner. Maybe it would have been a different type of way how we met. But it was only when I had gotten to a point where I had to see myself, and to look at what fears I had, was it when I was willing to actually come face to face with this amazing woman.
And when you did, because I do want to get to the meeting point, but we don't need the details of how you met and all that, but when you did you immediately know?
I did.
You did.
But he was very resistant.
And what did you know?
The first thing I said to him was, I know you already. I've seen you before. And he went on to saying something like, we were destined to meet way before we were born. And I was internally rolling my eyes. Oh God, another LA dude.
Yeah, exactly.
But for me, in the beginning, it wasn't like love at first sight, but it was a very strong connection of I recognized him, I knew him already, and every time we talked or hung out, it was always it was too short of a time, and I always wanted to be with him more. Even though if we had the whole afternoon and evening together, we were catching up. It was we had so much catching up to do. That was really, really interesting, actually, to realize,
Yeah, for me too, because that doesn't happen to me. So it really kind of freaked me out a little bit, because I don't like being on telephones. It's just not my thing. And I was on the phone with her for 4 hours, 3 hours. And my family, literally, it was a time of Game of Thrones, and my family started putting up banners that said, "This is the no Princess Märtha zone.
Whoa.
So get out of this room. We do not want to hear your conversations." And when I would go in the car and start talking to her, my friends were like, "No, we're not going to be driving and listening to you talk to her."
Whoa.
Because it became so...
Or about me.
Or about you. I would talk about you all the time. And they're like, what are you going to talk? I was coming to my friend's house and I'm like, oh my God, you guys, you don't even know. And they're like, what? Märtha? Again? Really? And I'm like, yeah, I just can't get her out of my mind. I don't know why. And I'm getting all these weird images of things that I didn't want to be honest about that I saw, And when she first came in the door, I looked into her eyes and I got an image of myself as a pharaoh on a throne, and she was next to me on that throne. And I saw her as this high priestess who I had to marry. I was a young kid who was ascending the throne because my father had died and I was ascending the Egyptian throne. And they presented me with, arranged situation with this high priestess daughter of this high priestess, that she was at a very high level, and that we were to be married. And I saw it, it was in my face.
Was that the same life where you described to me where I was there?
Yes.
And a few other people? Okay.
Yes, we know the other people, but yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And that's why, like, when the other person, Martha's like, oh, well, she does that all the time. So, you know.
Oh, it's like a pattern in other lives too.
Yeah.
Oh, I can totally see that. It's so interesting. Yeah, and you know, I don't know if you know the full story of when I was on the podcast, and Shaman Durek's podcast, and he like said basically what we had already known from a past life regression, like kind of exact details, like the whole story you just repeated on air, and it was like something that we had already seen, my friend and I, you know, this person, and in a past life regression. And so it's really interesting that we're all connecting again, and it's almost like, and you can tell me how you see this, but that it's simultaneous almost, not even like past, present, future. It's just like kind of all the lives overlapping like a cake.
So I have this feeling that some of us had lives where others weren't there, and so forth. And this is the life. And then there was a life when we all were there, and then the other life.
All of us in this, or everybody.
No, like the people that we're all connected to on a strong level, that we were all there. And then we had lives split off to different things. And then we made a decision that in this time, we would all come back together as one.
And just for even people listening, this is a really important time, right?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, I feel it so strongly. And 2024, I feel like is going to be like truth, so many truths being revealed. And I would like to know what you think. And then also 2027 for some reason, and that also happens to be the year I turned 38. But I keep seeing 2027, whether it's human design, gurus, shamans, everybody keeps bringing up 2027. Can you tell us anything?
So I've already told people in other conversations and lectures and podcasts and whatnot, and that the year 2024 and 2025 is going to be called the year of reveal, because that's the year when a lot of the lies and deceptions that have been plaguing us, of if this is real, is this a conspiracy theory, is this something we made up, is going to be coming to light. And so it's going to shake a lot of people. It's going to shake a lot of people. In the year 2027 is what we call the second conjunction, which is the awakening of the gateways. So it's human beings coming into a new understanding of power, of what it means, but not the power structure that we're used to, but a different form of power. And the people who have been holding that have been cultivating it for years, are going to rise. And so there's a rising effect that's going to take place, where the examples of government and so forth are going to start being not manipulated, but transfigurated in a way that actually starts supporting humanity instead of like just taking away from people.
In 2027?
Yeah, and then that will be the beginning process. Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit chaotic.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are going to want to hold the old ways, but there's going to be more people that don't want it, and they're going to be the ones to make it change. And so it's going to be like a breakthrough moment. And then the years that follow, the structure will then begin to change, because eventually there will be a united people of men and women of different ages and sizes and cultures of race that will be the voice, instead of just having one president or one dictator or one person speaking. But that will take time to cultivate.
Have you spoken about that before?
No. But you asked a question, so I answered it.
Thank you. So, and I won't keep you guys too long. I do have a story about 2027. I have not spoken about this either. Gaia also, that same woman, when we talked privately after the podcast, said, and she had not seen, there's no way she would have seen this 38, we're like this the whole time, and she says, when you turn 38, you'll start doing miracles and blessings for people. And that's so interesting that happens to be 27 when we start discovering our own power. But she says, you won't be doing what you're doing now, it'll be blessings and miracles. But you have to embrace the name you had in ancient Persia when you were doing miracles and blessings then, and your name then was Firas. Crazy thing is that my name in this life, my first name is Firas. I've never gone by it, I've never said it, I just have always gone by Frank. It's easier for people, I go by my middle name. Firas is my actual name, and there's no way she ever, or anybody would know that. Also, a year before she told me that, another friend of mine was in a plant medicine ceremony, and left me a voice note and said, hey, I know it's like really late. Your ancestors wouldn't leave me alone until I promised to tell you that you have to go by your first name. And it all is like, it's like layering. It's leading up to everything happening in 2027.
For the rise.
Yeah,
For the rise. And we're also getting married at the time of Venus's high rising. So it's the Venus energy, and Venus energy is actually what carries us into the rise of the people who are going to start seeing their potential and understand why they're actually here, instead of like seeking, constantly asking people, what is my purpose in life? What is my purpose in life? Your purpose will be revealed when you're ready for it to be revealed, and the revealing starts next year.
And then what would you leave people with, Princess Märtha?
I think the most important thing that I've learned is to be truthful to what you actually hear and what you actually experience within, and finding your inner compass, your inner voice, and just relentlessly following what it says without being critical or being afraid. Because I think a lot of people are afraid of what they'll find inside once they dig in there. But it's not dangerous, and I think it's really important that we start waking up to that inner voice and that calling of who we actually are, instead of living up to who we think we want to be.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for not just being on the show, but for your bravery in the world and what you're doing, and like taking that big step and doing what a lot of people would be really afraid to do, you know? Because yes, you had that calling, but you didn't have to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
But you do.
Yes, we do. You do. The spirits will get you there eventually.
But you do.
You read The Alchemist, yes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you read The Alchemist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
You will get there.
You'll get there.
You might
So
be
weird that you
screaming
say
and,
that.
and getting angry and upset, but you will definitely get there.
Everybody?
If you don't want to do it right now, then it'll turn up again in life.
Yeah.
Like when you're learning a lesson, it comes again and
over
again
and
and
over till you
again
do it, yeah.
until you actually do it.
So true.
And then, so if you are resistant, then they'll go, okay. And then you'll, oh God, I need rest or whatever. And then you break your leg and you're in hospital, and that's your rest, instead of taking the rest when you actually hear that now I need rest, you know? And so you are going to get it, but you're going to get it in a different way than what you actually thought in the beginning.
It's like you said, like I could have met Princess Märtha earlier if I just listened.
I'm sure we could have, absolutely. Because she was going to Ibiza and staying at my friend's place. And there's many opportunities that I could have met her, but it wasn't time because I didn't want to accept it at that time. And it's the same thing when I was, Spirit told me to move to Israel in the middle of a war. And I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to move to Israel. I'm not moving to Israel. You know, like I'm not doing that. And I was living in Italy at the time. And I went to dinner at my friend Donatella's dinner, Donatella Borghese. She had a beautiful dinner. And across from me was this two guys, and they were eating very strangely. And I said, well, do you always eat like that? And they said, yes, of course, we're from Israel. I said, okay. And they told me, and we started having a conversation, and they invited me to come to Israel. And I was actually going to go to live in Amsterdam for a while. So I tried to go to the travel agency and said, I want to get a ticket to Amsterdam. They said, we don't have any tickets to Amsterdam. I said, really? And then I heard a voice go, ask about Israel. And I said, do you have a ticket to Israel? They said, yes, we have one last, leaves tomorrow. And then I went to go to my friend. I said, you know, I feel like I'm being forced to go to Israel. I don't like this force from the universe. Let me go get a tarot card reading. And she goes, oh my God, it says you're supposed to go to Israel. So I was like, so basically I don't have free will? They're like, oh no, you have free will.
But you can ignore us, but we're going to keep...
But your path is your path, but you don't have free will over your path, if that's what you're asking.
Like you can choose the shirt you're going to wear today.
Yeah, you can choose how you're going to respond to it, right. You know, but you're going to Israel. We want you to go to Israel, and that's just the way it's going to be. You can fight it any which way you want.
But it's the same as us coming to your show today. Like, we can choose what we fill this time with, but I got from Spirit, like, we have to go now. Like, you know, so we can choose what we want to perceive, what we want to share, what we want to be in that space, but we're supposed to be in the space.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
It's amazing. So I'm happy to be alive on this planet.
So fun. Yeah, it's
We
perfect.
got great things to do.
Yeah, it's just starting.
Yeah,
Like it starts now, basically.
Yeah.
I love you both so much. Thank you for
You
Love
too.
you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Great.